Good afternoon, everyone. This is the afternoon version of Softball Grandpa. Um, January 26th, 26, 26. You hear the noise, that's Henry and Hawkeye in the back. Hi, Hawkeye. Henry's over there doing something, trying to find a ball, I guess. Today, this afternoon, I'd like to talk to you about the first time I got high, because I found this inside my garage. I don't know if you can see that. It says it's a roach clip, and I told that, like I told you before, this is a history lesson for my grandkids about their grandpa. First time I got high or stoned was. I'm going to guess it's about 1970 or 1971. I can't remember the exact day, but I know it was on a Sunday night. Maybe I should turn the light on. At the 5 o'clock Mass, my older brother and I were supposed to be at the 5 o'clock Mass, and we didn't go to church. We went to my brother-in-law's house where we were listening to rock and roll and smoked some blonde Lebanese hash. Out of a trippy pipe, and I got wasted. I was done, and my brother was freaking out because we had to be back in time for dinner for the Sunday night dinner and after Mass, and so we left there. We were probably only there maybe a half hour, and he took me to a liquor store to buy me a carton of milk because he thought if I drank the milk, it would sober me up. And I hated milk, And so, he came up with a story. He says, "Well, when we get home, you go right to bed." And I remember laying in my bed, just whacked out. And I could hear my parents in the other room, the dining room, and they, "Hey, where's Rich?" "Oh, he wasn't feeling good," my brother said, and he just went to bed. And I guess and boy, oh boy, I wasn't the regular weed, but the weed today is like 17 times stronger than the weed we had back in the 70s. But that was my first introduction to illegal drugs. I started smoking pot in high school. I worked all through high school, and I worked at Jack in the Box, and that was a fun job. And we used to smoke pot there and make hamburgers, flip burgers, and do stuff like girls would come up to the window and late at night on Friday and Saturday night, and one of us would sneak out in the back door and go and pull the coil wire off their engine so it wouldn't start. Because back then you could pop the trunk or pop the hood without getting inside the car. And then the girls would come up to the window and say, "Hey, we can't get our car started." And we would go out there and we'd be like, magicians, and, "Well, go ahead and start it now." Put the coil wire back on. And we were heroes, That was one of our little scams. But getting back to the illegal drugs, my same brother-in-law, I was over at his house maybe like a year later, and we were smoking some pot and watching Dragnet on TV. Dragnet. And for the younger ones who don't know what Dragnet is, go on YouTube and type in Dragnet. It's a cop show. And it was an episode about LSD. And my brother-in-law, he had planted some LSD inside a cookie, and I ate the cookie, and I had no idea he planted the LSD inside the cookie, and then I thought it was the pot, and I said, "Hey, this is really good pot, Hey, let me get a lid of this." A lid was an ounce, for $10, and he says. And I said, "Hey, man, let me borrow your car. I want to go down to Rick's Hamburgers and get some burgers." And he says he wouldn't let me. He always let me drive his car. He had a '69 Cougar XR7. It was a fast car, 390 C6 transmission. Just very cool car. And he wouldn't let me. I said, what? Come on, man. And I kept bugging him because I wanted to go get some burgers. It was like around Christmas time or something. And he says, I'll tell you what, you really hungry? And I said, yeah. And he was tripping that I was hungry. And he says, I'll drive you. And we hit the boulevard. And he asked me, he says, it's a pretty clear night, huh? And I said, well, yeah, it is. And the lights were all so vibrant. And, I didn't realize I was hallucinating. And then he told me that he planted the LSD inside the cookie. And I lost it. You rap. And he said, dude, just calm down. There's nothing you can do about it now. Just sit back and enjoy. And I guess that made sense at the time because, I don't want to freak out and go try to stop a train or anything like that. And, but I sat back and that was the road, the beginning road to my demise. Maybe I shouldn't say demise, but to my not a perfect citizen. How's that? So, remember what I said earlier, a few things back, you can do whatever you want as long as you're willing to pay the price. But something like that, I was totally unaware. Smoking the pot was one thing, but, and I probably drove over 10,000 miles behind LSD. Stuff would be we'd be going to the river, and stuff would be flying at the truck all night long, and once I was with my buddy, and I say, hey, are you seeing the same thing I'm seeing? And he says, well, it depends what you're seeing. And he says, what are you seeing? And I said, well, right down the middle of I-10, it was like all the sky on the one side, right in the middle, was all dark, and the other side was all bright. And he said, no, yeah, I've seen the same thing. So I thought it was, but he saw the same thing. Could figure that one out. But, yeah, we had a lot of fun. It was Cruz Valley Boulevard Friday night looking to score, and we'd score some L, and we'd drive to the river and be up all weekend and smoking our brains out, and, didn't sleep at all. And, so it's a wonder that my brain is actually still functional. But wow, this is 7 minutes. So anyway, kids, don't do drugs. Don't do drugs unless, if you want to be like your grandpa, go ahead and do it. But if you want to stay in school, get an education, and get educated. Don't go down the road that I did. But anyway, God bless. Help somebody else. Be of service to somebody else. Somebody told me today, I went to an AA meeting this afternoon, the noon meeting, and somebody said after the meeting, I look like Jeff Bridges. If I only had his money. But anyway, with that, peace out. See ya.